Today I get to talk to one of my very, very good friends. Her name is Allison Balanc. She's a singer-songwriter in the D.C. area and a full-time entrepreneur and a full-time inspiration. I think you guys are really gonna love this story because she just takes the faith, the spirit, the passion, and she puts it in every single thing that she does, and it's just so inspirational to watch. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to bring her on the show today.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of the Healed podcast. I am your host, Miss Amber Kenni, back at you again, honey. This time we have the beautiful, magnificent, my very dear friend, whom I love so much.
Oh, I love you too.
Allison Balanc, honey.
Hey. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I couldn't think of anyone better to have for this.
Oh, thank you,
honey, because we're talking about going after opportunity. And this woman right here, y'all, I'm trying to tell y'all, she is an inspiration if I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you. So are you. Come on.
I appreciate that, girl. I really do. But this woman right here, y'all, is a full-time entrepreneur. She left her job. When was that? Was that in 2019 at this?
Yeah, end of 2019, the very beginning of 2020.
Yeah, she jumped ship and she was like, I'm gonna do this on my own. And since then, she's really been out here racking up accolades among other things. So I'm super proud of her as her friend, but also I'm inspired by her as an entrepreneur. So what is the life of a professional singer like, Allison?
Well, my life is, I think it's a lot of fun. I do enjoy the fact that I'm able to basically do something I love to do every day. So that's something I'm very grateful for. I make a point to have daily gratitude as part of my everyday practice. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I love being creative. And so I just feel very blessed to be able to use my talents to make money, and to be able to do that, full time is truly a blessing. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of self-care, mainly because, as a singer, your body's your instrument. So, you really got to take care of yourself, exercise and sleep well and be very mindful of what energy you have around you, because, because I have to be creative every day, I have to really be on point every day. I can't be dragging or not taking care of my body and my voice not sounding good. So
listening to Allison talk about all the things that she has overcome and all the things that she's discovered within herself just reminds me of the importance of why we do purposeful work, why we do things that are connected to our calling, and why we do things that, ultimately help other people and inspire other people. So I'm really inspired listening to her story, talk about how she got from where she was to where she is now.
It definitely made me start taking a lot better care of myself. I felt like I did that very well before, but it definitely became a very high priority for me. But I think it's a good thing. So I'm enjoying that too.
Yeah, that intentionality definitely makes a difference. I completely identify with what you're saying. It's having that routine, that thing that you're going to do every day to care for your body. It really does make the difference.
It definitely does. And when I became an entrepreneur, I recognized that as someone that works for yourself, you have to constantly be the magnet for new opportunities.
Facts.
So it's a little different than when I was working a 9 to 5 and I could go in and be in any type of vibration, any type of mood, and I was going to get my check no matter what. As an entrepreneur, I have to be that magnet. I have to be in an energy space where I'm attracting abundance and attracting opportunity. So it made me become it made me really start cherishing my peace and my boundaries in my life more than I ever had. But it also made me start to advocate for myself more than I ever have, because I wasn't really doing all of those things before. But I also think that I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing now. I feel very in alignment. And I think a lot of the way my life was previously was me trying to fit into a box that wasn't me. So as I've been on this journey, and all those experiences have benefited me now. They have, like, everything, when you look back,
Yes.
everything has its reason and it's all made sense. But that was not what that was not supposed to be like my career. Like, it wasn't. It just wasn't. And it's just really interesting. This journey that I've been on it's really been a journey of self. Like, it's been learning so much more about myself and like realizing that, like, you know, I'm a lot stronger than I ever really gave myself credit for. And learning how to live in a faith-based way rather than a scarcity mindset. So it's been a very spiritual experience too. So I don't want to like take the question off into another area, but it's been a very spiritual experience for me. And there's been a lot of I feel freer now than I think I've ever felt as a woman and just as a person, like, in my entire life.
When I wasn't at peace with myself, I really did feel stagnation in everything that I did. Like, I just felt like everything was sitting still and nothing was working out is how I felt. But as soon as I started to incorporate more peace, like protecting my peace, being careful about, you know, how I react to things, how I respond to things, and also being careful about what I allow to upset me, that is what really helped me become a more peaceful, collected version of myself. And I also noticed that when I accepted that peace into my life, I also then, you know, started feeling more aligned.
And just a level of confidence that I'm 35 years old. It took me 35 years to get to the point where I had the level of confidence that I've always wanted, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a very, very gratifying journey. There's definitely been some hurdles, but I believe that we create our lives, and we're not, things aren't happening to us, they're responding to us. So I make the decision every day that this is going to be an abundant day and great things are going to happen today. And I'm going to attract new opportunities, and the universe has provided. So I'm very, very, very grateful.
Life is full of choices. And I really love what you said when you were talking about living a faith-based life versus living in a scarcity mindset, because that absolutely can block a lot of opportunities. Like, honey, I know for me, for a fact, living in a scarcity place has blocked so many opportunities because I told myself no before I even allowed anybody else to tell me no.
Right.
You know, and it's sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing it until you get out of that mindset. And it's like, wow, I really could have done this a long time ago. But, you know, even then, everything happens in divine timing, you know?
Absolutely.
So even when you were talking about how you had to go through those things in your other places of employment, that is so beautiful, because it's true. The things that you learned along the way are aiding you right now.
I also had to prove it to myself. Like, it was something within me that I wanted to prove to myself that I could really climb a corporate ladder and like get to the top, you know, like that was something. And I had gotten the funny thing is when I left my job, I had just gotten a huge pay increase and like a much better role. And I was in a bigger company, and on everything on paper would have looked like, okay, yeah, this girl, she's crushing it. You know what I mean? But that wasn't where my heart was. I was only doing it just to say that I was in a certain tax bracket and that it was for all the wrong reasons.
It's the ego stuff.
It was just so I would look a certain way to my peers. And I started realizing how many choices I had made in my life based upon the opinions of others. And I recognized that wasn't serving me in any capacity. And that was kind of like the beginning of that unraveling of self-consciousness. And, you know, some of that is learned behavior. Like, you know, I have, you know, you're around your parents when you're growing up, and I have, you know, one of my parents is very, very self-conscious. And I feel like some of that kind of, I realized as I got older, kind of rubbed onto me, and I had to unlearn that stuff. And now I just feel like I don't really give a shit what anyone thinks. Like, I will just come out the house looking like whatever, roll up, doing what, like, I'm just like, this me, you know, like, take it or leave it. Like, I'll hop on FaceTimes. Like I had a date with somebody on a FaceTime and I hopped on the phone. I didn't have any makeup on or anything. I'm like, this is me. It only gets better from here. So you don't like what I look like now.
If you can't take me without my makeup, you certainly do not need me at my Beyonce. Understand that.
Exactly. So it's been very very freeing, and I just recognize that I was just making a lot of decisions that were based in the wrong reasoning. There was a lot of ego. It was a lot of worrying about what other people thought.
Right.
It was basically me trying to fit myself into a societally, what I deemed at the time, because this was my paradigm at the time. Like I believed this. Like it wasn't until I made the decision that, like, you know what? Everyone kind of has this mindset of like starving artists. I don't claim that energy.
Baby, when I cared about what other people thought of me, I was literally always feeling like I'm at my wit's end. Like, oh, what can I do right? I was very judgmental of myself. But when I started like moving into that space, kind of like what Allison was talking about, when you're moving into that space of full acceptance where you really do not care about what anybody has to say about you. That is really like the moment that you're looking for when you are trying to heal, when you're trying to get to a place of alignment, like the place where nothing else matters.
No. I believe people are starving if they decide to believe that that's the life that they're going to live. But if you make the decision that you're going to win at something and you only throw energy to that thing, then that is what's going to happen.
That's all that's going to come to you.
Mm-hmm.
You starve your fears and you feed your ambitions. You feed what you want to occur. So if you want abundance to occur, you have to start acting. You have to start walking in abundance.
You do.
Before you even feel like you have it. And it be the ego that gets in the way. It's always the ego.
Well, ego is it's just our survival mechanism. Like it has its purpose, but it's not, and the thing that I've learned too, it's never anyone else standing in your way. It's always you. We might perceive that it's an outside thing. It never is. And I'm someone, I'm really into watching people's biographies and learning their stories. And I follow a lot of artists that I love and hear them talk about their journeys. And I read people's like captions and stuff. And all the people that like kind of went away for a bit and then came back, they always come back and they're like, yeah, because I was dealing with some stuff and like I was standing, it's always like I was standing in my own, because it's always that. It's never anybody else. We want to place the blame. It's not. It never is. It's not.
It's true. Sometimes we have blinders on for ourselves. Like it's difficult to have to acknowledge that you have contributed to the toxicity that's in your life. You have contributed to being blocked. You have contributed to all these things. It's very difficult to admit that to yourself, but it is also very freeing when you finally decide to do that. Well, you have sang at hundreds of venues and gigs. What has been your favorite performance and what made it so special?
My favorite performance was when I first performed at the W Hotel. And the reason why it was my favorite performance, because that performance was probably one of my bigger shows. Everyone I was friends with came. Like it was like the outpouring of support that I had that evening was just like, it was unreal. And it was, the W said it had been like their highest grossing concert for the series that they were doing. And it was just the outpouring of support. And that was like really like that. It was around that time where that's when I really started gigging like regularly, was really around that time.
Right.
And it's so funny because I look back then and I was someone who struggled with stage fright for years. And I was still dealing with it at the time. And I just look back on that time and think of just like, it's such a blessing to see how far you've come in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And just look at the growth and like, I had people that were rocking with me even then. And I feel like I'm a much better singer now than I was then. And I mean that with complete humility, but I'm just, I've been working on my craft. And I had people that believed in me then, and I wasn't even as good a singer then. And it's just like, there's my friends and my family have been believing in me before I believed in me. And I've never forgotten that. There's been so many people who have been rocking with me from like forever. Like that's one thing I've never I've never waned in was people's like support in that when it came to that I've always had that. And I was very reminded of it at that show. So that's probably my favorite.
I was so excited to hear Allison talk about humility, because it's so important on your healing journey, and it's important in anything that you do. Understanding that things are a lot bigger, like stuff is bigger than yourself. It never hurts you to be a sponge and continue to learn. Like, you don't know everything, I don't know everything, we don't know everything. Like, life is so full of things that we can learn.
That humility is so important, and it goes a long way. It goes so far. Like, when you realize I didn't do it. I had a tweet. I tweeted something the other day that exactly reminded me of something you just said. I have done a lot of things, but everything is not one of them. I have not done everything by myself, or I'm sorry, I've done a lot of things by myself. Everything is not one of them.
Yeah, no, not at all. And
no,
I've learned, as the more I'm learning about myself as a person, I'm recognizing that I thrive in collaborative settings. Like,
you do, absolutely.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm someone that I need that interaction. I need that energy, because I find that I do better when I work in groups. I find that I'm better when I have an audience. Like, it's part of my makeup. And I think it's just, I feel like we're designed exactly for what we're supposed to be doing. So it kind of just makes sense. But I think being humble, there's such a grace in humility and being willing to learn. Like, I am like, help me. Okay.
Yes. I do not know everything.
Like, please, like, I am a sponge. Like, if I feel like there's someone who, is more skilled than me or knows more than me, I'm more than willing to sit back and soak in all I can.
It's a tough pill to swallow when you realize that you're the one that's standing in your own way, when you realize that you're the one who has been adding toxicity and you have not been accountable for your actions. It's a really tough pill to swallow when you realize, like, the large part that you play in your own unhappiness, in your own unsuccessful pursuits, if you would like to call it that. Like, it's a really tough pill to swallow when you realize, like, you know what, no, I've had a lot to do with this as well.
And it's just really interesting. It's so interesting, because it's like, when you start to move into that different type of energy space, old you would have been like, had all the reason to be acting arrogant, because that's what you were identified so much with, the ego. But it's like, when you get, and then so you get to a point, you feel like maybe you do have the reasons to feel, but it's the complete opposite. It's just like this overwhelming feeling of like humility and gratitude, and just kind of going with wherever life's going to take you. And it's just a really nice feeling.
Yeah, it is. It truly is. And I hope that, all of our listeners get to experience that, if they haven't already. That spiritual awakening, that understanding it's a feeling like no other. Especially when you finally start to feel aligned with what you're doing. Well, girl, we are seemingly seeing the light at the end of this pandemic tunnel.
Right.
How has the pandemic impacted your work, and how are you handling it?
The pandemic, and I kind of kept this close to my chest, but the pandemic was actually something that really worked in my favor.
Yeah.
Not in the beginning, but in the beginning, everyone was kind of like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah.
But, what ended up happening was my vocal coaching work, I was able to start doing everything via Zoom. So it opened up my client base to take people like all over the country. So I was really able to, like, once people settled in and like decided, hey, this is what's happening.
This is it.
A lot of people were seeking activities that were bringing them joy. So a lot of people were rekindling a lot of their hobbies and rekindling some of their dreams and things that they wanted to do. So I ended up really building my client base during that time. And I ended up being nominated for the Washington Area Music Award, the Educator Award. I didn't win, but I was nominated. And
but you were really nominated.
It was really humbling, because I'm just like, this work is very close to my heart, and it was good. I went to therapy during during quarantine, and that was something I needed to do, just for my business and for my and because I find when you're in a mentally sound space, you're more reliable, you're more consistent, and that's something that you have to have as a business owner. And so I did that, and obviously I really wasn't doing any performing, but it's fine because I went back and did some like further certifications for my business, and just took some time to really just continue to focus on my craft is really what I was doing. I built my home studio during that time. That's actually what I used my stimulus checks for.
I know that's right.
I bought all the equipment that I wanted and I told myself I was going to do that. And that's what I did. And I just continued to add to it over the course of, I didn't do it all at once because that's costly, but I just chipped away at it over the pandemic. And, I just really just focused on like, I want to be the best at what it is that I do. And I just took the time, and a lot of like different like programs with like Berkeley and other schools were offering like these really great deals because of the pandemic and these great payment options. So I took advantage of those things. I'm like, I have nothing but time right now. Like I need to just be focusing on building my craft because this isn't going to last forever.
Here's the amazing part though. You always have the capacity to change it. You have the capacity to do better at any point in your life. Like you can today decide that, you know what, I no longer want to deal with things in this way. I no longer want to live my life this way, and you can change just like that. You can decide to make the change just like that. And of course it's a process, but it's definitely a process that is worth it to go on.
And that's pretty much what I did through quarantine.
It sounds like you did that pivot, that creative pivot, and I can identify with that as well. Like I understand what you mean when you say you kind of kept it close to the vest, because there are so many people that say that the pandemic was the worst thing that's ever happened to them. Yeah. And, you want to be empathetic.
Exactly.
You want to be empathetic. But then on the other hand, it's like, that pandemic kind of did a little, I was good in the pandemic because I was able to pivot. You're able to create, you're able to learn. But, using your time differently, we just used our time differently, honestly. And that's what it comes down to.
Right.
And, that doesn't mean that we did anything better or worse than anyone else, but we just chose to do different things. And I get that. Like the pandemic definitely was a blessing in disguise for a lot of people. I mean, we're still in it. Let's just say that out loud. We are in a pandemic. But again, that creative pivot was very important and still is, really.
Mm-hmm.
So you're also a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you draw your inspiration? How do you find the words to put into your songs?
I've been writing a really long time. I actually was someone who was writing before I was singing. So the songwriting, I
didn't know that.
First.
Okay.
Yeah, the songwriting actually came first and the singing came second, but the writing was always the first love.
Mm-hmm.
And I really just write about my experiences. Like I write about things that are heavy on my heart and like I need to get those words out, or like something I'm really moved by in someone else's life, or a scenario or subject matter that I feel like needs to be brought to the forefront.
Right.
So, I really write about a bunch of different things, but a lot of them are my personal experiences. And for me, it's just very cathartic. Songwriting for me, the level of joy that it brings me when I'm doing it, I can't really describe. Like, it's just like, there's no feeling that tops it for me. And I'm talking all favorite feelings, like eating your favorite food, like, hanging out with your, just whatever, like all the vices, the things that, it's just a feeling of almost like euphoria when I'm writing a song and it clicks and then I've got the ideas. But it's just always been something I've done, like from a very, very young age. I always did it. Like I would take songs on the radio and I would like remix them and write my own words to them. And I was like doing this when I was like 7 or 8, so I would always be writing like short stories and plays and poems. And like, I was just always writing. It was something I've always done. And most of the experience, it's just drawing from my own personal experiences. I think, I am an empath and I'm someone who feels things very deeply. And I feel as I've gotten older, I've accepted that as a strength because it gives me the ability to to channel that into my writing and into my singing. And so again, like I said, as you get older and you start to realize everything you were designed as was for a specific reason. So it's never anything arbitrary. So yeah, it's really a therapy for me. Like it really is a therapy for me. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a common theme among like a lot of musicians and a lot of songwriters, a lot of singers, that music, that writing just feels cathartic. It feels very much like alignment. Like there's no other feeling to you guys that, that can compare.
No.
And I really think that's a beautiful thing, because, everyone has their own way that they experience that feeling.
Right.
But to be able to transmute it into words that people sing along to.
Right.
I think that's dope.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, girl.
Thank you.
But I tell you this all the time. So how important is becoming grounded in your work? You kind of touched on this earlier, but we'll talk more specifically. How important is it becoming grounded in your work? Do you experience negative self-talk as you climb in your career? Do you still experience that? You touched on it earlier.
I think I did. And I think I did go through a phase where I was losing some of the joy. And I think I was feeling a bit like there was some monotony in my life.
Yeah.
But then I realized that, it was really my responsibility to bring that joy back and and I prayed on it. And I said, please rekindle the joy of why I got into doing this in the first place, And when I invoked that, it came back, and I just, I found that I listened to a lot of Eckhart Tolle, and he was talking to a woman she was a life coach, and she was like asking him for advice on like how to be a better coach for clients and stuff like that. He was saying one of the best things you can do is we feel like we have to bombard people with information. He was like, being present in that moment is sometimes and I actually took that, and I was like, I would have never thought that it was something that simple.
It's so simple.
So I started incorporating that in my sessions, where I'm like, Allison, above all, just make sure that you're extremely present in this moment. And I noticed that when I took that approach, not only did I feel more grounded in my work, but I feel like I've seen so much improvement in my clients. So it's, and you do see the improvement. Like when you're teaching people how to sing, it doesn't happen overnight. Everyone's trajectory and how long it takes them to get certain places is going to be different. Right. But it is extremely gratifying as a teacher, like when you're working with someone and all of a sudden it clicks and they're doing things that they weren't doing a month ago or a year ago, and their confidence is building, and they tell you, oh, I'm trying out for this, I'm going to go. It's a beautiful
feeling. It is.
It really, really is. And just, it's that every time that experience happens, I am grateful every single time.
And honestly, like that's a great segue into the next question. Like knowing all of these things, what do you want your legacy to be? Like what is the impact that you would like to leave on the world?
Women empowerment is something very important to me. I want women to feel like that they can navigate in a business setting on their own, and they don't, and they can do it. I feel like entrepreneurship is something that's very important to me. Yes. Financial literacy is something all of these things are very important to me. And they're all things that as I've grown as a business owner, I feel like I've really gotten to understand.